What's good, y'all? We're going to talk about this boxing today. And of course, obviously, the Canelo fight that happened this coming Saturday and history being made. Undisputed. The first Mexican in the four belt era that actually pulled it off. And we're also going to talk about Terrence Crawford versus Sean Porter. But first, I'm actually going to wait for a bet that I did recently with Canelo Plant, as y'all may have noticed. And yeah, I'm just gonna wait to see like if he's gonna come in. That way I could uh send in my bet, Chicano Profit. So if you're here or like if you're coming in, uh I'm ready to pass the bet, man. I mean, well, pay up, I guess. But anyways, man, let's talk about this Canelo Plant. Well, Canelo Post Undisputed, because I gave my thoughts already post Plant. And Caleb Plant can learn from this fight, and Canelo has already learned from this fight as well. Of course, like going forward, becoming undisputed, and there's a lot to take in. There's a lot of things to consider, and I didn't mention this in my last live that I did post after the fight that happened that Saturday, and there's a thing that's been coming like I mean, there's a thing going on these past recent years about Andre Ward. Should he come out of retirement to face Canelo? And how would a fight like that pan out, especially with Andre Ward after like the whole hiatus? And uh, yeah, there's so many different discussions about it, that everyone wants to talk about with Andre Ward versus Canelo. But to me, I think that we should more so focus on like the present because there's a lot of opponents out there for Canelo to face, but um, I don't know like if there's that many that could actually beat him. And I don't know, like there's some good opponents out there, but I just think that Canelo, he's like on another level once again, and because he's already become undisputed. He's could basically do whatever he wants in that division. I see we got some people coming in. Let me see. I'm not gonna post a link until Chicano Profit comes in. That way I could pay up, obviously. But that's the only person I'm gonna let on the panel. So what's it called? Caleb Plant, even though I got the prediction wrong this past Saturday, there's still a lot that he could pick out from this fight, and there's still a lot of things that he could work on. More so, specifically sitting down on his punches, that's for sure. And it depends on who he faces next. And I would still like to see him fight David Benavidez personally, because I think that's a good learning fight for him, and that's also a good learning fight for David as well. Because David is starting to become like one of the top candidates for a Canelo fight, whether it be in a fight or two or not. Because it seems like Canelo's going to take a break for a while from what I've been hearing around the internet. And David Benavidez has a lot like to focus on, like with his boxing ability and his power. Well, not his power, but his offense. I mean. And his boxing ability seems like it needs a lot more polishing when you ask me, because the way that he fights on the outside, it's good, but you're also going to have to engage in some offense. But at the same time, you got to be very defensive on the inside with a guy like Canelo. But aside from that, Canelo, let's say he fights like at light heavyweight against Beterbiev, against Bivol. To me, if you ask me, like when I think about Canelo versus Bivol, I think the Bivol fight would be like very, very neutral. Like in terms of how Bivol like approaches it, because he's a safety first type of fighter, and he doesn't really have that much punch variety unless like he wants to actually launch punches. But he really is careful with what he does. Like he just jabs and he tries to get out of the way of danger overall. Like he tries to make it a boring fight, And you can't really do that against Canelo, man, because Canelo is eventually going to land a combination on you. And they're just going to give Canelo that round because you've been so inactive, because you're hesitating engaging with Canelo. That's what I think about a Bivol fight with Canelo. But Beterbiev, it would be entertaining while it lasts. You know, I could see Canelo getting hit with a couple of good shots. But when I see Beterbiev like start to wear down, like I could tell that Beterbiev doesn't have that much good punch resistance as uh I think everybody's overlooking that a little bit. And he did get hurt by Callum, what's his name? Callum Johnson. Even though Callum Johnson has some power, but at the same time, like Beterbiev can be affording to get hit with those type of shots. All right, y'all, I'm back. And as I was saying about the Beterbiev fight, I don't know, man. Like I've thought about it like many times. You know, like if you asked me 5 years ago, like if Canelo was gonna be able to beat light heavyweights, I probably would disagree with you and call you insane. But the way that Canelo's been jumping up weight classes and winning some of these fights in the fashion that he's been doing, yeah, my opinion has completely changed from that, from the last time that I actually broke down a fight with a Canelo or like some of these light heavyweights, man. Because some of these light heavyweights are defensively flawed. Like you have to be a perfect fighter to beat a guy like Canelo. You have to have a complete skill set, and you have to have a lot of natural attributes to you. You know, like uh, sitting down on your punches correctly at the right time, and just a complete skill set overall. You got to think outside the box. And Caleb Plant could think outside the box, but the thing was like he was too much of a boxer, and but that's what I believe like completely led to his downfall a little bit. And there he does have some punch variety, but at the same time, like he's usually like very careful with that punch variety, and especially when it settles in, when he's trying to block a lot of counters, like he catches and shoots pretty good, but at the same time, like you also got to be very offensive against Canelo, but at the same time, you have to also be very defensive against him. Like it's a lot of stuff to consider when facing a guy like that. And there's, I don't know if I could see Canelo going up to cruiserweight because I think he beats a lot of the light heavyweights, but it also depends on the amount of weight that Canelo can put on for his body. Because believe it or not, cruiserweight and heavyweight, I mean like light heavyweight, that's a big amount of pounds that you have to gain for a division like cruiserweight. Like Canelo would have to at least be borderline looking like Mike Tyson to actually be going inside it. Yeah, man. I agree. I agree, Ace Stone. Canelo's way too small for cruiserweight. I mean, there's some exceptions to the rule, like Dwight Muhammad Kawi, but Canelo, man, like Canelo would have to be um working on a lot of his defense, you know, like his movement. That's the only thing that I could think of, you know. Many cruiserweights are fit heavyweights in disguise. Oh yeah, definitely, man, definitely. Um Canelo, man, like the way that he's gonna have to put on weight for division like cruiserweight would be a little strange to me because I don't know like if it's gonna be all muscle or like he's just gonna eat himself up there like how James Toney does. Well, just like how James Toney did back in the day, like when he fought in those higher weight classes. So I don't really see that for Canelo. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know because I've seen Roy Jones like actually jump up to heavyweight. So I mean, it's not outside the realm of possibility. But oh man, it's kind of a hard picture for me, like to actually see Canelo in that type of division. But I think he should continue his undisputed run at 168 pounds because at 168 pounds, you have a lot of fighters that are passing through, like from the middleweight classes or like that are dropping down, like, from fighting at 175 when they were prospects and just staying in between those brackets. Roy Jones was never the same when he went from heavyweight back to light heavyweight. Exactly, man. And once Canelo makes that jump, he can't go back, like otherwise he's just going to put a toll on his body. There's a reason why like he never went back to 154 pounds as much as everyone was advocating for that, like to fight Demetrius Andrade at 154 pounds and a bunch of different fighters and stuff. But um that's what also why we didn't even see Canelo like go back down to 160 pounds, And I thought that 160 pounds like was his natural size, his natural weight class, his optimum. But at the same time, 168 pounds, that's a big leap too. Like once you start skipping more than what 6 pounds, 5 pounds, you're already like jumping up a lot of weight by that time. Going up to cruiserweight is a career commitment. It is. It really is, man. Like, cause once you're going up to cruiserweight, that's at least what 25 pounds, and not including you like coming in fight night. Because in fight night, you have fighters coming in athletically gifted at like what 210, 220 pounds. That's almost the same weight as Mike Tyson did come in, like on a regular basis. Like that's his walking around weight. 168 is Canelo's prime weight. Exactly, man. Exactly. You already know what it is. So, Canelo, I think he should continue making some defenses at undisputed, at 168 pounds. Canelo has his man body. He isn't that young, 21 years old, fighting Shane Mosley. Oh, yeah, man. Yeah. It's because, like, Canelo had an early start and he was able to grow from his body. You know what I mean? Like, he was able to mature it properly, grow it, but to his credit, man, physically he moves a lot better at that weight than I actually anticipated, because he has like a big neck and it's real hard for anybody to knock him out with that high guard defense. And he doesn't even need to like really move his head like on a swivel anymore as much because like he could just block a lot of shots. And the way that he disguises his high guard just to trick people, I mean, just to trick opponents from trying to get any type of body shots on him because they're afraid that he could counter them. Like he could actually live off of that, feinting, doing a lot of like subtle tricks of the trade that you would only see veterans do. Like he's already doing veteran tactics, but at the same time using his athleticism and skill set overall. Like at his early 30s, Canelo should wash out 168 for another 3 fights. Yeah, there's some good fights out there. David Benavidez, whoever wants to jump up from middleweight to 168 pounds. I'm hearing Jamal Charlo. He wants to get up there and weight. Canelo needs to go to 175 now. No fools left. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, there's some opponents at 175, but I don't think they beat Canelo like that. Like 168 pounds, I think has the more skilled fighters there. Like, what's his name? Well, obviously, I think Caleb Plant is a lot more skilled than a guy like Joe Smith Jr., if you ask me. But at 175 pounds, Beterbiev is definitely physically the strongest, like out of anybody in those divisions, like 175, 168 pounds. That's not a debate. But my thing is like Artur Beterbiev's chin, his punch resistance. Like, oh man, like it'll be a good fight while it lasts, but he's just gonna I mean, he's just gonna keep hitting. No, oh my god, I don't know what I'm trying to say anymore, but he's just gonna he's gonna keep getting hit. You know what I mean? If Canelo goes to 175, he will need to stay there. I agree. I agree. And considering like the amount of talent at 175 pounds, I mean, there's some good opponents, but some of those opponents aren't really like schooled like the same, as like somebody from 147 pounds or 140, like from those lower weight classes. Cause that's when like the skill sets start to dull, like especially in this age of boxing, like where everybody like in the higher weight classes is gambling on power. So Canelo might actually be able to be successful in a run at 175 pounds, like for a long time. You know what I mean? The Beterbiev 37, Bivol looks not too good. Joe Smith be a good fight for Canelo. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about Joe Smith, but I agree with Beterbiev and Bivol. Like Bivol doesn't have it in him. You know what I mean? To actually convince judges that he's actually winning rounds against Canelo because he fights way too neutral, man. Because Canelo be would like teeing off some of these combinations on opponents, and it really gives like the judges this idea that what, Canelo's actually gonna win these rounds because he's blocking a lot of the opponent's punches. And I could just see Bivol doing like a typical stick and move, but nothing is just penetrating the guard of Canelo. He's not gonna diversify punches like that. So Canelo could go to cruiserweight. He would easily be Makabu for WBC. That depends on how like Canelo puts on the weight. But I agree, just on his skill sets alone, he could beat somebody like Makabu or even a guy like Kudryashov. But I really want to see how Canelo would put on the weight for cruiserweight, because he would be looking like Mike Tyson, like a literal depiction of Mike Tyson, a Mexican Mike Tyson, believe it or not. The Beterbiev gets dropped. Oh yeah, easily. 175 pounds was deeper when you had guys like Adonis Stevenson, Chad Dawson. Oh yeah, a younger Kovalev, Hopkins. It would have been interesting had Adonis Stevenson been around during the time of Canelo. Like if they were in the same era, because Adonis Stevenson is now like from a different era compared to Canelo when it comes to light heavyweights now. And that would have been interesting to see like how Adonis Stevenson would have landed on Canelo. He had that southpaw style, but at the same time, he didn't move like Irazlan Lara or he didn't have that stereotypical southpaw style that you would normally see being a boxer. He was a lot more offensive, especially since he was being trained by Sugar Hill. So that would have been an interesting fight. And especially a younger Kovalev. Hopkins, I think Hopkins maybe not. I don't think so, especially the one that I saw against Joe Smith Jr. The pull at 175 doesn't compare to those guys. Yeah, man, the pull at 175 is a lot more different than 168 pounds. So I don't know. It's an amazing story, Canelo. It's getting insane. Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, he's at the middleweight classes, and he's been doing a lot better than what he did at 154 pounds or what he was doing way early in his career when he was still developing as a fighter. A guy that was like fighting at 147 pounds. And what he's doing at middleweight, it's not a debate anymore on who's the greatest Mexican fighter. Like, I would, anybody would feel stupid to actually think that Canelo's not the greatest Mexican fighter at the middleweight classes or at the higher weight classes of all time. You know what I mean? Because you could debate about the lower weight classes about Mexican fighters from then. Like Ricardo Lopez or Salvador Sanchez, like all of these different fighters. But as soon as you get into the higher weight classes than 154 pounds, it's easily Canelo. Pound for pound, easily. Adonis Stevenson versus Canelo at 175. Oh yeah, I agree. I agree with that. Canelo would need to be careful walking in with lethal left hands coming in. Yeah, that's true. And also, Adonis Stevenson would have to be very careful of that left hook, because I think Bosdick was actually landing a couple left hooks in that last fight that he had of his career, and that's what was getting him. But then again, Canelo's a shorter fighter than Bosdick. He's a lot more stockier. He's a lot more compact with his shots than a Bosdick, and definitely a lot more skilled. People, Ward gone, Badu Jack, no more B Hops, Frotches, Calzagis. I think Canelo can clean up easily, man, easily. I think Canelo may not lose again, at least the next 3, 4 years. Yeah. I mean, this is what I think. This is what I've said before, and a bunch of people that I respect have said it too. One guy that I respect a lot, he owns a website called Three Kings Boxing. He actually said that Canelo's time is finished when the next star of boxing comes up, when they find another Canelo and they have no use for him anymore. Just like how they were trying to do with Floyd Mayweather, and just like how they did with Oscar, just like how they did with Chavez, um, just that star of boxing. It's not like a Mexican star thing. It's like a star of boxing type of deal, until they find another cash cow. Canelo is a top 3 Mexican fighter. Yeah, you know what? At this point, I'm not even gonna debate it. You know what I mean? Like, um, undisputed in the 4 belt era, especially in the middleweight classes where no Mexican fighter has ever like tread waters around. Yeah, you got to consider that, man. You got to consider that. Once you are in the top 3, it's subjective because you are comparing different eras. Yeah, man. Yeah. In Bar UK, Canelo fight 4 a.m. was about 700 people. It's getting fire for him even out of Mexico now. Oh man, I didn't even know that many people over there watch at like 4 a.m. I can't even imagine that. The only Look, the most awkward time that I've ever watched the fight was a fight in Japan, and that was Inoue versus Donaire, man. Like that was a crazy time to be watching a fight. That's like me making breakfast. So that's crazy, man. UK boxing fans have a lot of dedication, to the sport. My top 3, not in any order, is Chavez Senior, Canelo, Salvador Sanchez. I could respect that. Definitely Salvador Sanchez to be considered. No one Mexican here. Hundreds of people watching Canelo fight in sombreros is becoming a superstar. Yeah, yeah. Well, you do have a lot of Spanish fans over there in the UK, I'm pretty sure. And I'm pretty sure they like Canelo because they related to other fighters that were like Argentinian, like what's his name? Sergio Martinez, but Sergio Martinez was around a lot of Spaniards. Well, during his time, I guess when he was younger or like when he was still fighting, he was around Spain a lot and they tended to love him a lot too over there. So I'm pretty sure they would like Canelo over there because I know that there's a lot of people from Spain that live in the UK. I bet. Number 1, Salvador Sanchez, Canelo, and Chavez. Okay, okay. Yeah, definitely Salvador Sanchez, man. He's one of my favorite Mexican fighters of all time. But when you're comparing a list, making a list like that, of like being objective about it, that's real hard for me to compile, man, because I really got to do a lot of research and all of that. Oh, he actually lived in Spain. Okay, okay, that explains it. But yeah, man, like when I'm making a list like that, it really depends like on what you score and like you got to compare the eras because like they have different standards from back then compared to now. And if you ask me, I think Ricardo Lopez deserves to be up there, like in the top 5, top 3 maybe, So I think you're right. Many Spanish people were watching the fight. Yeah, man, Um, there's something that relates like between cultures and stuff, like when you share the same language, just like how a lot of US fans would watch like Anthony Joshua fights, and just like how a lot of UK fans would just like watch fights in period, but they also like a lot of US fighters over there, I bet too. So, will the older generation of Mexican fans accept Canelo as the consensus greatest over Chavez? It's gonna be a while for that, for everyone to be accepting that, because like I live in Texas, but I've also been to Mexico many times as a kid. Because I've had family that lives over there, and I would visit them constantly. But I also work around a lot of Mexican people too. Like it's in my blood, and I'm around a lot of communities as well, like that talk boxing around it. And there's a lot of Mexican fans that don't like Canelo at the same time, because like they're still in that mindset of the whole Golovkin saga that happened several years ago, and it's going to be a long time for everyone to accept it. And to be honest, I was a big Canelo critic for a long time, but I've come to terms with it. You know what I mean? Because I've noticed that most of it was not his fault. Like some of the stuff that happened throughout his career, some of it, majority of it actually had to do with Golden Boy. And as soon as he parted ways with Golden Boy, we started seeing him start making history. You know what I mean? Like fighting in these different weight classes, in the higher weights where Mexican fighters never really succeeded in. And he's actually setting the standard, especially becoming undisputed, especially when he heard about Terrence Crawford becoming undisputed, and like fans starting to debate whether who was undisputed or not. And just jumping up weight classes and winning a belt is not enough. Well, Canelo did it, man. Like, you got to give him that. He's the consensus number one pound for pound officially. You know what I mean? He's not a franchise, none of that. So I have Canelo about Chavez. As I think a 33-year-old Canelo would get knocked out by Oscar De La Hoya. Yeah, man. I mean, oh, you said also don't think a 33-year-old would get knocked out by Canelo. I mean, Oscar De La Hoya. Oh, yeah, man. Like, I think Canelo beats the shit out of Oscar De La Hoya at any time, maybe at 154 pounds, but post Floyd, I don't think so, man. I don't think so. The biggest critic of Canelo are Mexican fans themselves. I gotta agree, man. I gotta agree, because a bunch of people that are actually born in Mexico that I talk to a lot every day, they still are pretty critical about him. And I understand it, man. I totally understand it. But at the same time, man, like it's so much stuff that's happened since then. And Canelo has done a lot of stuff at the middleweight classes, but it's so much that you have to take in, and it's so much for them to take in. And 10 years down the road, it's going to be a lot more different. Everyone's going to start being a lot more comfortable with Canelo, especially what he has achieved. And some of them are still going to be holding sour grapes, but until they find another star, and if that star beats Canelo, they're never going to be satisfied, until they see Canelo lose, or even like when he's retired, like 5 years after, it's going to be similar to what happened to Floyd, or like what happened to other fighters if he does lose, like before his career ends. Yeah, nobody beats Cinnamon in the next 4 to 5 years. Agree. Even if Boo Boo and Jamal want to fight, they'll both lose. Both looked not good their last fights. Yeah, man. And here's the thing about Jamal. Like Jamal Charlo respects Canelo too much, and I don't think skill wise either. Like he would beat Canelo, because I think that he would just fall short, because the competition, and like Canelo, I don't know, man. Like, because Canelo just has enough to beat him. And Demetrius Andre has been fighting at middleweight for so long, and his competition, like, he's a late bloomer. Like, he's been tied down to that whole banner promotion issue that he had for so long. Like, it's been pretty bad for Demetrius Andre. At this point, he's a fighter that's just like ready to go. Like I hate to say it, but I could see him going down the same road as the Durrell brothers. I was thinking about that earlier today, and that's what it's looking like. People too nasty about Canelo. It's not good. Yeah, man. I get it though. I get it, but at the same time, he's already accomplished so much. It's gonna be hard to see anybody beating him anytime soon. It's gonna be Father Time that beats him, or the system itself that beats him. That They have to find another Canelo to replace him. That's the only thing I see beating Canelo. And it's going to be hard to see another star like rise from the higher weight classes, especially a Mexican star, because the only thing that the only next fighter that's like from Mexico that could actually probably, rival Canelo, like in terms of the whole domestic competition is Zerno Ramirez, but I don't even see him beating Canelo either. Yeah, I talked to people from Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. They're all like, fuck him. I think it's all just hate though. Oh yeah. Yeah, man. As soon as you get into deep Mexico, man, like you start to see like the real Mexican fans show up, that really don't like Canelo. And they're his biggest critics. Believe it or not, in Latin America, there was a post that I saw like on Facebook in the Box Azteca group, which is a network over there in Latin America, and they premiere over there in Honduras, they appear like in all of those Latin American countries. And there was a post that said that all the countries like Puerto Rico, Argentina, they're like, Canelo's a great fighter, Canelo's a great fighter. And even places like Spain, but as soon as it goes to Mexico, they're like, Canelo's doing this, Canelo's doing that. Yeah, it's starting to turn into that. But like I said before, they won't acknowledge it until he retires or the sport retires him. Canelo's peers are guys that already retired. Yeah, Andre Ward and I mean, Canelo's peers are guys that already retired. Yeah, yeah. These contenders are not on that level. Nah, they're not. I don't see nothing that could beat Canelo, especially in these higher weight classes. Nah. Canelo was a local star in Mexico as a teenager. It's hard to duplicate that. Yeah, yeah, man. Like it's gonna be a while, and it would have to happen like in the lower weight classes to see like a star emerge there. And I don't see anybody with that same discipline like in the lower weight classes. Like we just see a lot of jaw jacking down there. At 135 pounds, uh, even at 160 pounds, man. Like as soon as it gets there, that's when like the whole talent like pool dilutes. I can't read that, but it says Jalisco people, they hate him, so fuck them. They only jealous. Yeah, it could be. Jealousy, a lot of stuff, man, a lot of stuff. Or everybody wants to cling on to the past because like so much has been achieved by the other fighters. And like I'm thinking to myself, like when I was riding in my car yesterday, like the memories that they hold like for seeing a Chavez fight, seeing a Ricardo Lopez fight, a Sanchez fight, like that's what gets to them, when it comes to Canelo, because the nostalgia and them just loving to say, oh, well, me and my dad thought that Chavez was the best Mexican fighter to ever come out of Mexico, or Ricardo Lopez was my grandpa's favorite fighter. Like they won't let that go, you know what I mean? And they don't want anything interrupting that nostalgia, because of those memories that they hold. So I think it's more so of an emotional thing, and it's more so of a nostalgia thing because it has something to do with that type of issue, in my opinion, of course. Jalisco, where Canelo are from, are notorious backstabbers. Wow, I didn't even know that, man, because that's where Canelo is from, and I know a bunch of people from Jalisco. You know what I mean? But I didn't even think like his biggest critics would even come from over there. But until the internet came along, and then well, obviously the communities that I'm in around here, well, it's what it is. The only thing missing in Mexican boxing history is a true heavyweight champion. I am talking the guy making defenses on his title. Yeah, man. I mean, like, it's good that Andy Ruiz did it, but there's so much like questions, you know what I mean, that are like revolving around Andy Ruiz as a fighter. Some people are believing that he's just a one-shot guy. You know what I mean? That he's a one and done, and I don't think he's gonna become champion again. And his heritage, like where he's from, like there's still people debating whether he's American or Mexican. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be a long time until we see that, you know. But tell you what, where I'm from, man, like where I live at, there's a bunch of big Mexicans around here. Like when I used to be in high school, there was a guy that was like 6'6". Now he wasn't the most athletic, but he was like one of them Tyson Fury, Paul Bunyan looking Mexicans. You know what I mean? So that whole stereotype of us Mexicans being small, that is completely crushed based on where I live, especially in Texas, man, where everybody's like a big guy over here. You know what I mean? Like as soon as you hit the cities, like you start to see everybody that's like 7 feet. And you even got some like fit Mexicans too that are built like Canelo. Cause I've always said in these lives about a story where I met a guy in middle school. Well, I knew a guy in middle school that was like built like Mike Tyson. Like he had a Mike Tyson neck and shit. And I thought that was abnormal, you know? So, oh, skipped a bunch of them. Oh, Andy Ruiz could have been that guy if he had great discipline. Yeah, he could have, but you know how it is, man. Like he just wants to concentrate on like what he, well, he just wants to live in the past. You know what I mean? Based on that victory of Joshua. So Mexicans are like British people over here. Someone does well, they start to hate. I hate that about my own country, the UK. Mexicans, yeah, are like, well, yeah, man, I could see that happening too. You know, like I can't really speak on what happens in the UK, but we got like a split rift going on in Mexico. You know, like between certain fighters, like Canelo, obviously, but you also have some about Ryan Garcia, about Andy Ruiz being his heritage. Like us Mexicans will find something to argue about, believe it or not. So Ruiz is not from Mexico, the first Mexican American heavyweight champion. Yeah, man, you could class that essentially the same way that everyone classed John Ruiz as the first Latin American heavyweight champion. So that's really about it. You can't really say that Andy Ruiz is like a full Mexican champion, you know, because he would have to be born in Mexico. But he did fight in the amateur circuit over there, so um, that's the thing about it that everyone wants to use like in a debate. Personally, I think that debate is a moot point. In my opinion, Andy Ruiz is like a music star who is happy making one hit instead of having a consistent career. Yeah, man. I mean, as soon as you live off that one hit, man, it's all about being consistent afterwards, you know? Like that's the hardest thing that comes after, not just winning it, but keeping that status. And Canelo, gotta give him credit for that. Like that discipline is rare nowadays, like in a lot of fighters. So Texas has some big boy. Oh yeah, yeah, man. I mean, over here, I don't know what it is in the water, but I guess it's the heat that makes everybody like go through some type of adversity, you know, like because when I was in the boxing gyms, man, we used to be running on the concrete and the concrete would get hot itself. Like my shoes would be burning up, a bunch of stuff. AJ ran from Andy in the second fight. Yeah, man. I mean, AJ can't really make adjustments like that, especially on the inside. And those demons like continued to haunt him, you know, like all the way back from the Andy Ruiz fight. That's why you didn't even see him making any type of adjustment against Usyk, you know, and I don't even see him making an adjustment against Usyk in a rematch. I think it's just gonna end for him right there. So he can't fight inside. He doesn't like think outside the box. Um, he really needs some type of like tutelage. In my opinion, he should probably go to an American trainer. That's what I always thought about it. I don't know how you guys in Texas can train football in 110-degree weather. Yeah, humidity in the summer. Oh man, you'd be surprised, man. You'd be surprised. As long as you drink a gallon of water or carry it with you every day, then you should be good. Like every morning, like every time that I run in the summer heat in Texas, I would just drink like half a gallon of water. Like the very first time that I wake up, like around 5 or 6 in the morning, and I don't eat anything. You know what I mean? I'm fasting at that point. And after I do my 3 to 5 mile runs, that's when I'll start eating again and probably take a nap afterwards because it's been so hot. Even in the mornings, man, because in the mornings it would be like what, 90 degrees, 85 degrees. And that's like your best time to get something in, you know, because as soon as like that sun hits at 11 or 12, that's when you start feeling the concrete heating up. Yeah, it's tough out here, man. It's tough out here with that weather. So, um, appreciate y'all. Well, matter of fact, I'm actually gonna wait to see if Chicano Profit arrives because I did lose that bet. So I gotta pay up, man. I gotta pay up. Um, Anything else, guys? Wow, there's a lot of people in here, man. Especially with my 6 months on, where you have to be a subscriber for 6 months in order to comment. Wow, that's cool. What city in Texas is the best fight town? Hmm. You could argue Houston because Houston actually has a lot of fighters coming out of there. You had George Foreman, you had Ann Wolf, and then well obviously the Charlo brothers. But a lot of the great fighters came out of that area, of the Houston area. So I would have to say Houston, believe it or not. And then well obviously you have Galveston, Jack Johnson, and Dallas obviously with Errol Spence. I think Terry Norris is from Dallas. I'm not sure. San Antonio, even though I'm from San Antonio, but the best thing that came out of San Antonio was freaking Tony Ayala. That was it. Oh yeah, you have Juan Diaz out of Houston, but it's sad though because I remember Juan Diaz got knocked out by Marquez in Houston. Oh man, Marquez was one of my favorite fighters over there. Well, not over there, but I mean Mexican fighters of all time. You know, seeing him fight Pacquiao. Wow. What part of Texas is Virgil Ortiz from? He's from Texas. I mean, he's from Dallas, same area as Errol Spence, and I think they came out of the same gym too, because he did post a picture with a gym, well, with the same coach as Errol Spence, the same Mexican coach that he trained with. You know, so yeah, he is from Dallas. And then you also have like all the other fighters, you know, like the Mario Barrioses. You also have Charles Hatley, like coming out of different parts of Texas. I forgot where Charles Hatley is from, but I know Mario Barrios. He's from San Antonio, definitely from San Antonio. But um, yeah, man, a lot of Texas fighters, man, like the pedigree over here is getting better, like as the years go on. And then obviously you had James Kirkland. I think he came out of Austin though. Matter of fact, I think Ann Wolf came out of Austin actually, not Houston. I'm not sure. I gotta look up on that because I know she came from either Houston or Austin. Not sure, but the point still stands on Houston being the top spot for boxing, Texas boxing, I should say at least. So definitely then. San Antonio has had big fights over the years. Yeah, I'm surprised, man. You know, like it's been holding a lot of events. You know, they had Gervonta Davis over here. They had Canelo a lot of times. You know, that was like one of his couple fights over here, you know, since Austin Trout. I think that was the last time that he fought in San Antonio. And you had like several PBC events over here, like in the last couple of years. Who else fought over here? I mean, you had Adrian Broner fighting Marcos Maidana back in what, like 2013. So it's a fight town, definitely for sure. But it has a bad reputation. I'm not gonna lie, because San Antonio, man, believe it or not, San Antonio is known for that Chavez Pernell Whitaker fight, and it's just never gonna stop with that fight because that's where Texas gets a bad reputation of having bad scorecards, mainly because of San Antonio during that night with Chavez and Pernell Whitaker. Is there a difference from Texas Mexicans versus California Mexicans? I went to Texas last year. I got nothing but Mad Dog looks because of my Dodger or Lakers gear. Yeah, there's a difference, man. Believe it or not, because I've had relatives that actually lived in California, and they still do live over there. Like cousins, distant cousins, I should say. And the lingo's different, and I hear that there's a lot of like issues that revolve, you know what I mean, like around a bunch of other stuff where like the California Mexicans are a lot more aggressive compared to the Texas ones. The Texas ones, man, are a lot more chill, you know what I mean? They're just about their work, their sports, you know what I mean? Just like you're saying right now, like maybe because of that, that's why you probably got a lot of bad looks. But if you were wearing like something else, like a casual gear, man, like there's a lot of good hospitality, like to be returned, you know. So us Texas Mexicans, man, we're good. We're good over here. Um, just definitely don't run up on one, man. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you'll have a 6'5" Mexican guy breathing down your neck and shit, you know. So wasn't Broner versus Maidana in San Antonio? Yep, it was. The subculture is different between California and Texas Mexicans. Yes, it is. It is because over here the Spanish slang is a lot more different. You know, like they say in California, "Hey, Holmes, what's up, Holmes," and all of that, or like "What's up, cuz," and all of that other stuff. But over here in Texas, we say like, "Hey, que on the way." I doubt that some of y'all know what that means. I don't even know what "way" means, believe it or not. And I've been here for the longest, you know, like I've lived here my entire life, but I never understood what "que onda" way means. But I know what "que onda" means, but not way. Slang, for example. Yep, yep. Wow, they actually say that in California too? Wow. Yeah, I never really heard of that, you know what I mean? Where anywhere else they say "que onda" way or um a bunch of other phrases like "está con madre," all of that other stuff. But like the slang is still a little more different because I never heard anyone say like "What's up, Holmes" and all of that over here in Texas. So, but then again, I'm in like a different part of Texas than a lot of other people. You know, like maybe up north, it's a lot more different than what they say like in the well, like in the west or even the east. You know, because El Paso can be completely more different than somewhere like San Antonio. You know, or like in the upper areas of Texas, like in the Panhandle because that's when you're starting to go like into the Midwest, like basically. So, um, yeah, man. I mean, that's the whole cultural aspect of it, you know. So, um, appreciate y'all stopping by. That was a hell of a live feed today. You know, got y'all's comments in already. Uh, hopefully, like some of these fights start to happen. You know, like congratulations to Canelo once again. Um, El Paso is like its own culture. Oh yeah, definitely, man, definitely. Compared to a place like San Antonio, I know some people that are like around the El Paso Midland sector of Texas, and it's very different, you know, like based on what I've heard. So, but yeah, man, appreciate y'all stopping by. I'm gonna take a break right now. Maybe I'll go live again later on. I don't know, because I'm waiting for my rival better to get in here, or like maybe like I'll have to get on this show. So appreciate it, y'all. Uh, and I'm out of here, y'all. Peace. Take care. And shout out to A Stone, Dickie Two Guns. Who else came in here? Chinese Yoda, everybody that came by and passed by. Just leave a like, y'all, and I'll continue to actually do live feeds like that. Anytime that y'all throw these questions out here, like about Texas, like Mexicans in Texas, and anything like that, like that's cool with me. You know what I mean? I love talking about that kind of stuff. like it takes the right questions for me like to actually engage with y'all like that. You know what I mean? So appreciate it, y'all. Take care. Peace.